We are live with a pregame show before tonight's game in Detroit. Tom Callahan, Robyn Leano. Come on back and join us. We're going to talk about the big-time Utah Hockey Club signings from today and get into tonight's matchup and maybe a little bit of a trade deadline preview.
You are Locked On Utah Hockey Club, your daily podcast on the Utah Hockey Club, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome in everyone to today's show as we are broadcasting live before the Detroit game here tonight. Thanks for joining us and making us your first listen every single day when it comes to the Utah Hockey Club. Give us a like, give us a subscribe if you're here, and you know what, give us the old thumbs up. That really helps us both with the algorithm as well here on the YouTube side. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, where right now FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I am longtime NHL voice Tom Callahan, joined by longtime team analyst Robyn Leano. Boy, you know what, Robyn? It's an exciting time to be a Utah Hockey Club fan right now because big-time signings come down the pike today. You've got games tonight in Detroit, tomorrow in Chicago. The trade deadline is tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern time. This is a really important couple of days.
It really is more important than a couple of days. And what a nice little treat. Overnight when we all got the news that Utah Hockey Club signed, a few players to some extensions, including a really big name, and it's nice, right? It's nice to see that they're able to get stuff done from what we talked about, right? We're seeing, hey, which of these players are going to come and be a part of this team longer term, be a part of the timeline, be a part of the future of this franchise, and see how is this going to shape up over the next couple of years.
Absolutely. A lot to look forward to here. Want to say hi to Matthew and Marshall chipping in the chat here early on. And if you have any questions for us in this live pregame show, let us know. We will try to get to those and answer them for you as best we can. But Robyn, coming into this game against Detroit, an opponent you just don't see that much. You don't see the East a lot. I know that you play every team once in your building and then on the road. But the Red Wings are a team in the East in a spot also fighting for the playoffs, right there on the cut line of that wild card position. It's a very familiar position to Utah Hockey Club folks. Right now, the Red Wings have just as much to fight for, if not maybe a little more here under that Yzer plan, trying to figure things out. And can they do it? Can they get in? This is a critical stretch for them. They are going to really give Utah everything they can handle tonight.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I feel like for a lot, Detroit has kind of had lots of ups and downs over the last couple of years. They're still trying to have that true recovery from from having that that first year they missed the playoffs. So when they finally went back going downhill after 25 straight years,
25 years
of not missing the playoffs. They were one of the best teams and never missing the playoffs. I feel like there's only a few teams that had over 20 years straight of making the playoffs. And Detroit was one of them for a while. And then they went on that huge downslope going through that, and they're finally coming back. And I feel like that's kind of what we're going to see. We're going to see a competitive Detroit team that is going to be a tough one to watch.
Detroit comes into tonight at 30, 25 and 6, 66 points. They are 16, 14 and 3 at home, so just a little over 500. Utah 27, 25 and 9, 63 points. And on the road this year, Utah Hockey Club is 15, 12 and 3. So setting the stage there in the backdrop. Robyn, we talked a little bit on our preview the other day talking about Detroit. Their scoring is pretty top heavy. I mean, they've got 3 20-goal guys in Raymond, DeBrincat, and Larkin. And after that, it drops off. Kane's got 15, and then you go all the way down to 10. So you kind of know who the scorers are for this Red Wings team. I feel like if you can shut them down, that's your MO here for the evening, and that places a premium on the defensive side.
Oh, yeah. You just got to focus. You focus on shutting them down, but also at the same time, as I mentioned in the pregame show, you can't get too complacent. You can't just say, hey, these are the only people we need to pay attention to. Because it's happened before when all of a sudden some person that's, let's say, Joe whatever is going to go and get suddenly get, a 3-point night or something. And he's like, where did he come from? No one knows who he is, but we'll have to see.
That's always the worst when somebody
Yeah.
steps up out of nowhere against you, but you love it when guys on your team all of a
Oh
sudden
yeah,
come flying
it's
in.
it's nice. Then that's when we were talking about it. It's like, hey, who is who is this? Oh yeah, that's right. We talked about this player on the show, but maybe you guys were following under the radar. But we're glad he's finally getting the recognition or whatever it might be. Maybe we're the surprise and we're like, hey, let's go dig in who this person is.
Robyn, you want to hear what are the weird disparities about this Detroit Red Wings hockey club? I always like to harp on special teams. And Utah's special teams is pretty consistent overall this year. I know I say this needs to be better, that needs to be better. You can always improve. They're 12th in both categories, right?
Yeah.
Detroit's power play, 29.1%. That is second in the NHL. However, Detroit's penalty kill, this might be like historically bad, 69.9%. They're not even 70% this year. That is dead last in the NHL. So if ever there was a night to, one, stay out of the box, and two, antagonize your opponent to put you on the power play, this game is it.
And I think this is the kind of Utah's the kind of team that could take advantage of that, right? We talked about how of a aggressive team and how of a physical team they can be. They're not always it's not always the case, but they can use that to an advantage in a game like this and draw some penalties coming back to them to get on the man advantage.
And we have a question, Matthew. We're going to get to this a little bit later. Wants to talk about the goaltending depth in the organization. And if you're just joining us, first of all, thank you. We appreciate you being here. Feel free to put your questions in the chat. We are going to talk about the Utah Hockey Club signings and a bit of a trade deadline primer, because now Utah Hockey Club has kind of put its money on the horses it wants to ride, if you will.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be interesting, Robyn. And one thing I want to see, after Dylan Guenther signed his big contract extension, he came out like a house on fire. I mean, that guy was flying through the early part of the regular season. So now, I mean, Ian Cole, Alex Kerfoot, Karel Vejmelka, all extended. I'm curious to see what kind of, pep in their step they have here in the game after they sign those contracts.
We'll definitely have to see. And it could go, we've seen contract extensions go in different ways, Tom, right? We've seen contract extensions go in the way you mentioned with Dylan Guenther, where all of a sudden it's they get that confidence. It's like, oh, they believe in me. I'm going to go have one hell of a game. And then there is the other side, the flip side. And these are the ones you hope to not see, but they still do happen. And it's the one where after the extension, they get a little complacent. It's like, I got my money. I don't need to worry anymore. I'm kind of locked in, especially in the NHL. Contracts are really hard to get out of.
Yes, that is for sure. And I mean, the thing is, though, Robyn, just because a guy is signed doesn't make him untradeable. And just because a guy is not signed doesn't mean you're going to trade him. So I think that those are important. Some teams will take the gamble on hanging on to a guy past the deadline, hope that they can woo him back in the summer, or they may deal him at the draft to another team, although you're getting less in return. And that's the thing that everybody's got to weigh. And that's what the Red Wings have to weigh, is to see what they're going to end up with. And in fact, I mean, I know there were a couple of big trades that came down today, and we can kind of roll those in a little bit. And another one that just came down the line, as a matter of fact, Robyn, you and I tore apart a trade for the Canucks sending Carson Soucy and Pettersson over, and Carson Soucy has now been moved to the Rangers. That one just came over the wire before we hit the air. And a third-round pick was the return on that one. So you're going to see players moving. But the other thing, too, and I want to talk about this on the other side of the break, is players now that may look a little more available because of the extensions that were signed. So why don't we get to that here? Stay with us. And again, keep tossing your questions in the chat, and we appreciate you being here. We're going to get right to it here in just a moment. And today's show brought to you in part by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. I know a lot of you are Jazz fans. Hey, this is the way to go. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, You can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay, which is one of Robyn's favorite things to do, is do a like 37 leg parlay, which is crazy, but it's awesome when it hits. The live betting feature, I think, is a lot of fun because no matter what the score is, it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether you're pulling for the fourth quarter Jazz comeback, you think there's a rally coming, you think someone's going to hit a big three, someone's coming down on a triple-double, you think they're going to get it, maybe you think they're not going to get it. You never feel like you missed your chance. So, plus the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, want to say hi to Down to Funko, heading down to a watch party at a pizza place down the street from the old house there, and pretty excited about that. And you know what? I think it's awesome. I think that folks are heading out. Okay, I'm going to ask just because I'm curious. And pizza is a big deal in Buffalo too. Just like it is in Detroit, there is a Detroit style pizza. There's a Chicago style pizza. There's a New York style pizza. There's a Midwestern style pizza. What kind of pizza do you like the most? Just style. We don't have to get into it. I mean, if you want to drop toppings, that's fine. But I'm just curious. Robyn, before we start talking about the signings, what is your preferred pizza?
Oh, definitely New York style. I love I love I love that thinner style, and I just love the. I mean, it's the traditional style that I always tend to think of. Chicago to me is way too it's way too it's a deep dish. I've never really understood it. Maybe if it's made correctly, but whatever. But and I'm looking at Down the Funko. So Detroit style, that's that square and thick and crispy. I don't mind it. I do like Detroit style, but I'm still giving my love over to the New York style pizza.
Okay, so being from Buffalo, ours is best described as a mix of like the Chicago and the New York style. I don't like New York. It's too thin. There's nothing to it. I could eat 100 slices and never feel like I did a thing. I also don't like the Midwest cracker crust pizza. I've had that. No, that's not my thing. I like a nice middle of the road with heavy toppings. I do like Chicago style. I was introduced to Detroit style the first time I went there. It is good, and I love the crispy edges on it. That's pretty yummy. Look, pizza's most of the time pretty good. Occasionally, you're going to get a bad one. But Robyn, it's good to know that if you and I are going to the same pizza party, we're going to need two different kinds of pizza.
Oh, so, yeah, that, and then that's more pizza for us, right?
It really is. I mean, yeah, I'm all about leftovers. There is no bad time for pizza. So I'm all about it. All right. So now that we got off on that tangent for a moment, our live pregame show here before tonight's Detroit game. Thanks for joining us, everybody. All right. Utah Hockey Club did end up with some big time signings today, as Car Wash is alluding to in the chat as well. By the way, Car Wash also cheese pizza guy, just plain cheese and sauce. Okay, that's fine. New Haven style margarita. Roddy, I don't know what that is. You're going to have to describe it. So huge signings today. Ian Cole gets another year. Alex Kerfoot gets another year. But probably the crown jewel signing, Robyn, we got to start by talking about Karel Vejmelka.
Yes.
5-year extension, $4.75 million AAV.
Absolutely huge extension. I think I was just about to get ready to go to bed last night. And I was like, I'd already taken my melatonin, and I'm like, I'm ready to go to bed. And then all of a sudden that shoe drops, and I see Karel, see the tweet Vejmelka to that contract. And I'm like, okay, that's huge. That's really huge. By the way, we talked about this, right? We were wondering what the goalie situation was going to look like coming to trade deadline, because Karel Vejmelka has been on a contract year for the majority of this year. And it's like, okay, is he going to be trade bait with his value going up, or are they going to sign him long term? Are they going to focus on what the future of the franchise is and have him as that goalie of the future? And it looks like that was the decision they made. Seems to be that's going to be the goalie of the future now, and that really kind of sets things up for what the goalie situation is going to look like for tomorrow in the trade deadline. So
5 years, good term, 4.75. I don't mind that price. I think that he's a goaltender you can build around, only 28, and his best years are in front of him, certainly. So that's good. So this is going to beg the question now. So you've committed. Veg is the guy you want to be your starter, and it seems to be a very happy partnership. It asked the question, as it was asked earlier by Matt, what about Ingram? So now here's my thoughts on Connor Ingram. He has one more year after this. So while look, if I'm Bill Armstrong, I take phone calls about Connor Ingram. If you're calling me and you want to ask me, hey, what would it take to get this guy? We will have the conversation.
Yeah.
But I'm not in a rush, Robyn, because there is one more year on Ingram's deal. And so if Vejmelka had said, no, I'm not coming back, well, now there's an onus on you to try to move that guy. But now you have the luxury of time. And Stauber doesn't have to be here to start next season. Ingram, at any point, can either be moved or play out his contract. Stauber, even if he plays a whole year, or whoever next year in the AHL with Tucson, whoever becomes a goaltender in waiting. Right now, he's the guy, but it could be anybody. I think they're actually in a much better place because it's a little more position of power now because there's no rush to move a guy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of the what puts Utah now in the great situation, that they don't have to panic buy or panic sell, right? They don't have to worry about any of that. Not that I was worried at first that they would anyways, but we could potentially see a situation in where they stay a little more put and not really make any drastic changes to this team. Because what Bill Armstrong is doing, remember, is focusing on the timeline, not necessarily focusing on making the playoffs this year. Of course, it's nice if they do. All of us think that way. All of us say, hey, if Utah makes it the playoffs this year off the squad that they have, that's absolutely fantastic. But what Bill Armstrong is doing is focusing on the future. And if there's no opportunity that's really, singing to him over the next 24 hours, I don't see them making very many drastic changes, especially now that this contract extension is put in place.
So your cap for the goaltenders is going to go up next year. Right now, it's $4.675 million in total for Utah this year because Veg is at $2.725. That's going up just by his salary alone, and then $1.95 for Ingram, just south of $2 million. But that's not all that bad. They did save a little bit. Kerfoot's extension 1 year at $3 million as opposed to his $3.5 million AAV. Ian Cole, his extension, he was 3.1 this year. He will be 2.8 next year. So again, a little bit of cap savings. Utah has the room to do things. But Robyn, so now let me update everybody on the expiring contracts that really remain for Utah Hockey Club. Defensively, you have Bortuzzo, who's still listed on IR at $775, D. Simone at $775. Other than that, you've got 7 defensemen, at least through next year, including Kesselring. Up front, your expiring guy is Bukestad, $2.1 million, and Jack McBain at 1.6, essentially. And that's pretty much it. Michael Carcone, $775. So does that put more of an onus on those guys, the spotlight on those guys, that they might be the ones dealt? We know about Bukestad. The boomerang is the guy people want, and he'll probably come back anyway. But
there will be.
What about the rest of those names?
There will be some movement like that. And I would say still that maybe we'll see a couple of those players that you mentioned get traded as like depth rentals or just depth pieces moving around. We see that happen all the time, right? We see it happen every single year. Most rentals are usually middle six, but you never know. Some are bottom six. It really depends on what these players need. Utah's in a good situation because, as mentioned, especially defensively, is they have a lot of defensive personnel. I mean, they just send Juuso Välimäki to the Tucson Roadrunners.
Right. And I mean, you look at Tucson, you've got Välimäki, you've got Lamoureux down there. Defensively, they're stocked. Duda, Zuber is another guy we talked about. Now Onibuchi, this is his last year, but he's an RFA, so it's not like he's going UFA after this year on his contract. So, and even Goldsmith,
who qualify him, but I don't see why not.
Right. And I mean, what do you have to lose on that one? And of course, Koch at 28, is 775. He's going to go UFA. I don't know if there's an appetite to retain him or not. Maybe if the deal's right, but maybe not. But you're right. They have depth, goaltending depth, defensive depth. And at forward, if you do move on from a few guys here, you've kind of identified your core now that you want to move forward with. And this on top of the Ole Mata signings, what this tells me is that Bill Armstrong is comfortable with the crew he has assembled, that it's able to move this team forward now. And Robyn, we're just really now starting to get our skates under us, seeing what a fully healthy D looks like.
Right. Yeah, we will definitely. And I think that's kind of what gives Bill Armstrong that confidence. And I feel like not just Bill Armstrong, but the entire franchise, right? Everyone's saying, hey, they're confident in what this team is building at this point. But like I said, we're still going to see some movement. That's the nature of the trade deadline.
Well, it's going to be interesting coming up to it. Detroit tonight. I don't know if Utah is going to hold anybody out. We're going to find out in just a little bit. Puck drops coming just past the top of the hour. So Robyn and I are going to carry you up to that top of the hour here as we're getting ready for the puck drop. So when we come back, we'll throw some FanDuel odds at you and some odds and ends here as we get ready to wrap things up on this live pregame show before tonight's game against the Red Wings. All right, Tom Callahan, Robyn Leano back here with you in the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast, doing a live pregame show here tonight. Robyn, you know what? This game against Detroit, I've talked about how important it is. And obviously we know for both teams in the standings. Mm-hmm. I'm going to allude to the FanDuel slide here because the over-under set at 6.5, and I'm kind of curious to get your thoughts on this. I feel like it's been live by the sword, die by the sword for Utah lately, or maybe more feast or famine is a better way to put it for this team. And when the scoring is on, they seem to run it up. But then when it's not there, it's really not there. They're scoring twice, maybe in a game. So depending on which way this one goes for a close game, that's a tough one for me. I don't know what to pick.
I know. It really is interesting. I mean, like I remember we had some predictions on the Minnesota game last week, right? And that was kind of like I had that night off because I was celebrating a birthday. But but when I checked my phone, I saw the score was like 6 to something, whatever, and I'm I was like, good Lord, I love that, but I did not expect to see that. But we could see something like that in a game like this, because I think especially with these signings and with the confidence Bill Armstrong has put in this team, I feel like this is going to be where one of those games in which we see the offense going to be completely on. Even though the biggest signing was a goal for the goaltender, there still is going to be that confidence because I'm pretty sure everyone loves Karel Vejmelka on that in the squad.
Absolutely. I mean, if you watch 10 seconds of the guy on anybody's recording of him, you're just like, "Aw, Veg." It just seems like a super great guy. And but that's the thing. So does that keep this over under to the under because he comes out, lets in nothing or maybe a goal tonight? Utah on the money line -134, Detroit +112, which is interesting with Detroit being the home team because generally the home team gets a goal and a half. So that, and especially it's a close game. It's an important game. Detroit has made a couple of moves here and there. But Robyn, I don't know this. I'll tell you what, the only thing I can guarantee you is that tonight's game should be intense. I can tell you that much.
Oh, it will be intense. And you got my friend Sterling out there, Rody, saying 5-2 Utah. Hayton gets the first goal.
Okay.
I like that. I think Hayton's been on lately. He's been good. He's been looking good the last few games. I've been seeing. I mean, even if he's maybe not necessarily always getting on the score sheet, I think I just love watching him on the ice.
I think his game when it's active is
great.
Is annoying if you're the other team, right?
Oh yeah.
It's kind of what Kerfoot can be as well, and it's what McBain can be as well. And I love McBain's game as well. Those guys who get under your skin. That's why Spicy Tuna is so popular. Those guys are a pain in the butt.
And now you use the name, the type of player. I mean, Spicy Tuna a little bit more, and a little bit of different kind of player. But the players that you mentioned, those are power forwards. They're the ones that they use their body and they use their aggressiveness to get in front.
Robyn, RX Strength says, time to go big and get Rantanen. What do you think? Would you go get Rantanen? Would you?
I feel like here's the thing. Rantanen is that's the kind of player coming into this trade deadline that is high risk, high reward, because he's not been playing well lately, but we know he's capable of playing well. So it's like, do you risk putting a lot on the table to get a player who might produce a lot on your team and might get you over the hump and actually could potentially speed things up if he's playing well? I don't know if it's worth the risk.
I don't think I do that at this point, honestly.
You don't want to rush too much.
I don't think I do that. I feel like this team's time is 2 years from now. And I know the fans watching the show are like, what do you mean 2 years from now? Yeah. You're where you're supposed to be. You're fighting to get into a spot. And if it's a little bit of overachieving this year, you're in the playoffs.
Yeah. I even think they'll be in the playoffs next year, but next year they'll probably be a first round exit. Maybe they'll make it to a game 7, or maybe they even squeak by and make it the second round. But you're right. I think 2 years from now, this team is like a full on playoff team.
That is the logical progression for me. Challenging for the playoff spot this year, because they were way out of it last year. Challenging this year for the wild card, getting into the wild card next year, and maybe doing some first round damage, like you say, or more. Hey, why not? You're in, might as well go.
Nice.
But then in year 3 of this Utah move, which is 2 seasons from now, that's when I think they're going to be a contender in the Central and a contender starting to really come into its own. Some of those younger big time draft picks are going to start to evolve as well and might be making impacts as rookies. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Absolutely. And at that point, we're having you have the idea is that even though like we talk about how really good Dylan Guenther and Logan Cooley and all those young guys have been, but what I also want to say is that they're young enough to be still a little bit streaky, and those extra couple of years is what's going to help them kind of grow into their own and be full on. I think at those point, the two that I mentioned, especially Guenther and Cooley, like they can by then be progressing to be elite NHLers.
Absolutely. All right, Robyn, we got to let everybody go. We're almost time for puck drop here. Any final thoughts?
Now, just be ready for a really good game, and you know what? I'm going to even say it. Be ready for a Utah Hockey Club win tonight.
I like it. And if they win tonight, man, does this race get really interesting. Don't forget to keep it tuned on to us, not only on our social media platforms, but also throwing up some YouTube shorts. If Utah Hockey Club makes a move, we will have instant reaction and analysis for you, and we'll have a trade deadline wrap up as well. So thanks for joining us, everybody. We appreciate you being here, and we will talk to you next time on the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast.